Alex here with a high conflict child custody video on medical disputes. This video came after getting a few messages on people who are upset that their ex wants their child to be vaccinated and specifically COVID-19 vaccines, and that they don't agree and that they don't think it's fair. And all I can really do is explain how the process works. I'm not going to really chime in politically on that. But I will say that one of the biggest things that people have to realize is just because the court is ordering the vaccine to occur does not necessarily mean that the government is forcing the vaccine to occur. And this is from their perspective. I'm not trying to say that I agree with this as an individual personally. I'm trying to say from the government's perspective, it's different. And a lot of the questions that I get on this have to do with people upset that the government is, I guess, mandating vaccines. That is something like that would be different. That would be done through different statutory schemes, and they do exist, at least in Nevada. I've seen that the state has the power to force people to be quarantined. It's very different from what you see on TV where they're like quarantine and keep distance and stuff. It's like an actual civil action, and it actually does forcibly lock people away. It's extremely rare that it's used. I'm not sure it ever has been. I've seen the statutory scheme for it though, and it has come up in the news sort of as a academic, I guess, question. Again, guys, it's never actually been done. But anyway, that whole process is not the same as going into court on a child custody dispute and getting the family court to enter a ruling. The government sees it very differently. The government doesn't see it as the government forcing the vaccine to occur. The government sees it as your ex forcing the vaccine to occur. I think I've talked about this before in a few other videos, but when two people are parents to a child and they're coming to court and they're trying to get their divorce handled and they're trying to get their child custody rights, even though the actual outcome of that is one person having, or maybe even both people having their rights curtailed, the government sees that not necessarily as them curtailing your rights as they do the other party curtailing your rights, and more so the government sees it as stepping in to mediate between two different people who have rights on paper, but that they need that to be reduced into a court order so that those rights become a reality because now they're separating. And so when it comes to child custody designations, when it comes to visitation and timeshare schedules, yes, it's true that you aren't able to see your child as much now because the court has entered an order saying so, but they see that as your ex disagreeing with how much time you should have and them having to step in and decide how much time you should have based on all of these laws. So even though to ordinary people it seems like the same thing, because the judge is a part of the judiciary, which is a part of the government, and they are forcing people to do things that they don't want to do. The government sees it as a completely different issue in the way that the courts approach it to analyze whether it's legal and whether it's constitutional is also completely different because it's your ex, it's not the government. And I think actually now I can remember the name of the video is the government versus your ex, where I kind of explained that. So this is now leading into the whole point of this video, which is what happens if one parent wants a child to get a vaccine and the other one doesn't. And you can really apply this to any type of medical dispute. Like maybe one parent wants the child to get braces and the other one doesn't. Maybe there's some kind of like surgery or some treatment that the child needs that the other parent doesn't think they need. So you can apply this to really anything. I'm just using COVID-19 now because it's the actual, current event type of thing going on. So if one person wants the child to get a vaccine and the other parent doesn't want the child to get a vaccine, now you have, according to the court, not an issue of the government mandating a vaccine, but they have what they feel to be the issue of two parents with legal custody rights that can't agree and that they have to make a decision based on the best interest of the child. So the approach is completely different. They're not looking at constitutional principles about the government forcing people to get treatment. They're not looking at anything with respect to interfering in the ability of a parent to, raise their child. They see two parents who disagree on how they're going to exercise the rights that they have. So both parents have legal custody, Both have parents have the right to raise a child. Both have parents have a right to make medical decisions, and they just don't agree. One parent wants to do one thing and the other parent wants to do the other thing. And one parent thinks it's in the best interest of the child for the child to get a vaccine, and the other parent thinks the exact opposite. So the government's approach, the court's approach, is that we're not here to say you have to get the vaccine because that's what's good for mankind. They're saying that you both have custody and control of this child, and that you both have different ideas as to what's best for the child. So we're going to come in now and say what is in the best interest of the child, and one parent is going to get what they want and the other parent is going to get the exact opposite. They're going to feel upset. They're going to feel like, I didn't want this to happen and now it's going to happen. And all I'm trying to do with this video is sort of explain the way the government sees it. I know a lot of people aren't going to agree, but the government doesn't see it like we're forcing you to get a vaccine. The government sees it like your ex is, because that's what your ex wants to do, and now we have to decide which one of you is going to win on this issue. I know that it's seen as the child winning when the court steps, well, it's supposed to be seen as the child winning when the court steps in, but the losing parent rarely agrees with that. And I hope that this video helps people understand why it is such a different issue for the government. And I know that there are more serious areas where this comes up, like gender identity issues. Now there are some courts that are imposing gender treatments like hormones and surgeries and stuff for children, and that's in the news as well. And it's seen very differently than the government just deciding, since this child wants to get a treatment, they get to have it just because. They're seeing two parents who don't agree, and they are supposed to make a decision. A lot of people think that, well, if it's something like this, then both their parents should agree, and if they don't agree, then it shouldn't happen. But the problem with that is there's no statute that says that. So like, if there was a statute that said when there are two parents who are separated, you as a judge are not allowed to order gender identity treatments and hormones and stuff like that, or you are not allowed to let a child get vaccinated unless both parents agree to the vaccination. They could do that. The legislature could enact statutes that say so, and if the legislature did that, then yeah, the family court wouldn't be able to do what it's doing now. But since the legislature hasn't done that, they just fall back on the generic sort of best interest of the child statutes, because those statutes are there. And there is case law that says when two parents don't agree, the court steps in and makes the decision. So there's these general best interest factors, there's these general best interest statutes, there's this general case law on what the court's supposed to do when two parents can't agree, and all of that is applicable. That all applies. So just like when parents can't agree for where the child should go for school, same sort of situation when two parents can't agree on a medical treatment. Same exact situation. So for people out there who I hope that first off everyone gets some kind of some, I guess you could say, guidance from this video on how the court approaches the issue. And I also hope that people understand that it's really, if you're going to go beyond the way the law is right now, it's really a public policy question, and it's a question for the legislature. And of course, they can enact any kind of statute almost, with exceptions of unconstitutional ones. And that there are statutes that they could enact that deals with this stuff, the vaccine stuff and the gender. I do get emails on the gender identity stuff. People send me articles about what family courts are doing, especially in other countries. I'm not sure it's happening here. But unless those statutes exist to limit the judge's power, then the judge isn't, blocked from doing those things. The judge can do those things as long as it's consistent with the best interest of the child, which, as most people know, because of what I talk about in the video, discretion, they just have a lot of power to really say what they think is in the best interest of the child. And again, if you really want to know more about what I mean by that, please watch my video on the topic discretion. The last thing that I'm going to mention is what I talk about in the video, failure to agree, which is, if you don't agree, then you have to file a motion. That's just how it works. If you don't agree, the court is supposed to step in, or you could just give up. You could just back down. And I talk about that in the video, failing to agree. So it comes back to the issue of having to litigate when you need an order from a court on what the other parent should, shouldn't, can, or can't do. All that being said, as with my previous videos, feel free to post any questions you have down in the comments below, and I will see you guys next time.